Hi, I'm Bernie Flynn. At New Jersey Manufacturers Insurance Company, we believe that all citizens need to be informed about the important issues that affect their daily lives. That's why we're proud to support programming produced by Caucus Educational Corporation and their partners in public television.
Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by Investors Bank, New Jersey Resources, Sovereign Health System, a fully integrated multi-specialty community healthcare system, Oscar Health Insurance, NJM, auto insurance, homeowners insurance, and more, with a focus on safety and financial stability. ADP, a comprehensive provider of human resources technology and services. And by the Fidelco Group. Promotional support provided by NJ.com. Small news, big news, true Jersey. And by Commerce Magazine.
This is One-on-One. I'm an equal American just like you are.
The jobs of tomorrow are not the jobs of yesterday.
Look at this.
You
got this?
Here it is, man. Look at that.
Life without dance is boring.
When you first heard that they were doing Charlie Rose and Gayle King, didn't you go, what?
Do you enjoy talking politics?
No. People call me because they feel nobody's paying attention.
Our culture, I don't think, has ever been tested the way it's being tested right now.
Such a good question. High five.
Hi, I'm Steve Adubato. It is my pleasure to introduce one of the most significant leaders in the state when it comes to dealing with the population that is homeless and dealing with poverty. She is Connie Mercer, founder and executive director of an organization called HomeFront in Lawrenceville, New Jersey?
Mercer County.
Yeah. HomeFront is?
HomeFront fights to make sure that homeless families that are trying to work their way out of homelessness and poverty have the rungs on the ladder to do it. And most importantly, to make sure that their children have a shot at a real future.
How many people are we talking about, Connie?
On any given night, HomeFront's providing shelter to about 450 people, most of them kids, most of them under the age of 3.
Okay, so you have a fascinating background. You're a headhunter, right? You're successful at it. You're out there making a few bucks, more than a few bucks, right? What happens to you one night?
A friend, a pediatrician who worked for the Child Welfare Agency, came to me, took me out of my fancy offices and said, you need to come with me and see what's going on in your community. He took me out to the motels along the Route 1 corridor, and what I saw horrified me. They were filled with women and children and no place for a woman to heat a baby's bottle or to provide food for their child, or no place for a kid to do homework, certainly no place to play. And we saw hundreds of families literally warehoused.
Hundreds?
Hundreds of families literally
why
warehoused.
do you use the word warehoused?
Oh, because there's no other word that works. They were abandoned. They were left to rot in these God-forsaken motel rooms.
Why were they in motel rooms?
Because they were homeless, and that was government's response at the time, was to put them into motel rooms, but not to provide any social services, not to provide any way out.
This was, this is government policy.
This was
to put them in hotels.
This was what government was doing in Mercer County and no longer does. But across the rest of the state, that's still the norm.
Why?
Because there isn't enough affordable housing, and there aren't other answers that folks have chosen to embrace.
So describe what it is like, not just for the women, because there are disproportionately women without men. Mm-hmm. But what is it also like for those children? What are they dealing with, and what is the impact on them?
There have been all sorts of studies about what happens to homeless kids. Not only are they desperately behind at school, they are sicker, they have many more emotional issues, and it's different. They're even score lower on all of the tests of health and flourishing than do other children who are in poverty. The fact of being homeless is so debilitating. Parents can't pay attention because they are so overwhelmed and living in chaos. And
So before we go back to your organization, I'm curious about this. What do you say to people who say things like, we're in the middle of a presidential campaign right now, but it doesn't really matter, it could be after the campaign. You'll hear people kind of say things like, listen, anyone, you're smiling because you know where I'm going to go. Anyone can make it in this country. Anyone can overcome any circumstance if they decide that they want to make it, if they just work hard. Talk about these children and just working hard and overcoming their surroundings. Go ahead.
we hear that all the time.
You say?
And oh, if it were only true, our families want to make it. The first thing they ask us, is there a job for me? Can you help me get work? But when they are reading at a third grade level, when they have no child care, when they have no transportation, when they have no roof over their head, it's almost impossible. And I will point out that currently over 60% of the families we serve have an adult who works at least 40 hours a week.
So what is it that your organization does for them? Because you don't want to give them a handout. You don't want to just give them something. Don't you want to provide them the resources and the tools to be able to go out and do what it is they want to do with their families?
And that's what we're about.
Describe it.
That's what we're about. First of all, we've got to take care of their very basics, food and shelter. But once they have food and shelter, we need to make sure that they are in a literacy-rich environment, that they learn to read if they can't read, and if they need a high school diploma. So many of our folks don't have a high school diploma. We help them get the high school diploma.
How do you do that?
Oh, we have wonderful teachers, wonderful volunteer tutors, lots of folks who work with them around their dyslexia, things that have never happened before. We give them the environment that says you can do it, and we are here to help you do it.
What about the prospect of a job? You can't give them a job.
We get 20 to 30 people a month, folks who have been on welfare, who have been unemployed. We help them secure employment.
Really?
Yeah.
How?
Once you help them feel that they can do it, once you give them the tools, once you get them dressed up, there are jobs that they can do. The problem, Steve, though, is once we get them jobs, too many of the jobs don't pay a living wage. So a job is not the only answer in this incredibly wealthy community. Our families, if they get a job at minimum wage, they would need to work 3 full-time jobs, 3 full-time jobs in order to afford a fair market rate apartment.
Connie, let me ask you this. You've been working at this for a while.
Long time.
How would you describe the current state of homelessness and poverty in the state of New Jersey?
It's, in many ways, it's worse than it's been. In some ways, it's better. When we started 25 years ago, what we primarily saw were long-time welfare folks who never thought that their life would be any different. Now we see way too many. We don't see that much anymore. We never saw any men. Now 10 to 15% of the families we're dealing with have men that are actively involved, even heads of households, single daddies. But we see folks who work and who still can't afford to put a roof over their babies' heads. We see government stepping back.
Government stepping back.
Government stepping back at all levels.
Every level.
Every level.
Local, county,
local,
state,
yes.
federal.
Yes.
You see it.
Yes.
Because? Because they think the problem's solved?
There are all sorts of reasons why government's stepping back. We do know that as government step back, the public has to step forward. We do fear that the safety net that has been put in place is being shred very quickly in New Jersey.
And you've actually, sorry for interrupting, just had to move from your previous location to a new location.
We did. We were blessed with our new location. We have moved to a a decommissioned military base, a Navy station.
We're showing right there. Beautiful.
We have
groundbreaking. Go ahead.
We have literally taken swords and converted them into plowshares. It's a magnificent 8.5-acre campus. So
where's your money come from?
we do a damn good job of fundraising.
You sure do.
The community has been incredibly supportive of us. We've worked hard to make sure that the community, our Mercer County community, is saying loud and clear, it's not okay with us if there are hungry homeless kids. And that's what we believe everybody in the state needs to say.
I'm curious about something. One more time. For the children, long-term impact on the children who deal with poverty and homelessness. 30 seconds. Remind us.
The long-term impact is incalculable. The ones I'm particularly concerned of are the pregnant women who, if they're homeless, they cannot take care of themselves, so that babies are born not healthy. Forever we have the costs of that to bear, and the child has the costs to bear if they are not in a stable environment.
Connie Mercer, the founder and executive director of a terrific organization called HomeFront in Mercer County. Thank you, Connie.
Thank you, Steve.
You're a good friend to the program and to public television. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thanks, Connie.
Visit us online at steveadubato.org. Email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/SteveAutobato.PhD. And follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
We are pleased to welcome Mr. Brian Maher, who is member of the leadership group of Pre-K Our Way, and also the former chairman of Maher Terminal. It's good to see you, Mr. Maher.
Nice to be here.
You care very deeply about pre-K education. Why?
Well, when my brother and I sold our business back in 2007, I started looking around for what could I do to be productive. And like everybody else, I recognized the issues that face the country: stagnant growth, income inequality, lack of skilled workers. And so I concluded that education was an area where I should focus, and I had some experience with it in the past. And I started looking in, and people said to me, you ought to look at early education. And I did. And I got very interested in it, and we worked with the Ironbound Community Corporation.
Great organization.
Yeah, in Newark, and we created a 0 to 5 early learning center. And as we did that, I began to learn more about it, and I learned about the situation in New Jersey, where we have a first-class quality early education pre-K program as a result of the Abbott decision back in the early 2000s. And then I realized that it was only existed in 34 communities, and I thought, well, maybe we can have a bigger impact on pre-K if we try and raise the public will in New Jersey to expand it beyond the current communities.
Let's play this out a little bit. For those who don't know, Maher Terminals, a very successful company. Describe it.
Maher Terminals is a marine terminal located in Port Elizabeth and now also in, or at least at the time we sold it, in Prince Rupert, British Columbia, which is about 50 miles south of Juneau, Alaska. And Maher Terminal specializes in handling container cargo in both those locations. It is the largest terminal in the Port of New York, New Jersey, and handles about 1.3 million containers a year.
So let's talk about this a little bit. Pre-K. A lot of folks, if you ask this on a survey, would say, of course I support pre-K. Of course every child should have the opportunity that my child, if someone lives in a more affluent area, more comfortable area, and they actually have sent their child to a pre-K situation, they'd say, of course. But that's not the case in the vast majority of situations for a lot of children. Why do you believe, Mr. Maher, we do not have pre-K for every child in this state and this nation?
Well, I think the reason we don't have it today is because the public has permitted the inequity that exists currently in the New Jersey school systems to continue. There's 34 communities in New Jersey that have, or school districts that have pre-K, publicly funded pre-K.
Take that back. for a second. 34 out of potentially 600.
Yes.
Put that in perspective.
Yes.
A very small percentage.
A very small percentage.
Go ahead.
But there's this huge inequity that exists. You have cities like Bayonne, that is right next to Jersey City. Jersey City has publicly funded pre-K, and Bayonne does not.
Why?
Because well, there is an existing law on the books that was passed in 2008, extending pre-K to 90 additional high-need districts that was never funded. And why that is, you know, I mean, you'd have to ask the legislature why it wasn't funded, but it has not been funded.
Do you think the average person in New Jersey, I mean, I made the argument, devil's advocate, Mr. Maher, that most people in New Jersey would want to see every child have that opportunity. Are you saying you don't think that's the case?
No,
or
no,
they're not aware?
I think they're not aware. In fact, we did a survey. We retained Monmouth University a couple of years ago and did a survey of New Jersey voters, and discovered that a majority of New Jersey voters do support the idea that there should be greater access to pre-K. The problem is they don't wake up every morning thinking we should do something about that.
Like it's not a priority.
It's not a priority, and so the objective of pre-K our way is to educate these various communities and the people in them, and to generate a public will to pressure the legislature to do something.
What would you say to those who argue that the benefits of pre-K are not as clear-cut and not as significant as the advocates of universal pre-K argue that they are?
Well, we could talk about that.
Well, what do you say the benefits are?
Well, if you first of all, there have been studies that show that there are significant benefits throughout, and in fact, in New Jersey, there's an Apple study done by Connier that shows that there's increased reading and math skills through grade 5, and
if you have pre-K.
If you have pre-K. If you don't have pre-K, you're a half a year or 3/4 of a year behind that. Anybody who spends time with small children will recognize just how needy they are for stimulation, and if they don't get it in the first 5 years, and the brain science shows that in those first 5 years, it's extremely important that children get that kind of stimulation that they can get in a quality pre-K program.
But the other part of this that's very interesting is that those of us who have the means, the vast majority, I would argue, I mean, our daughter is 5 as we do this program, we made sure that she was in a pre-K program. So it's one thing what someone would argue in terms of what their opinion is. It's not quite another what they would do with their own child if, in fact, they could.
One of the things that I say quite often is those people who can afford to send their children to pre-K do. Those people who get it for free because they happen to live in one of those districts send their children to quality pre-K. It's the people in the middle that don't, I mean, you can, to spend $20,000 or $25,000 a year to send your child to a private pre-K school is pretty difficult to do.
Mr. Maher, is this a political issue? Because there's a 2017 election for governor. There's going to be a new governor. Governor Christie is finishing up. There's going to be, whatever happens as we do this program, it's a presidential campaign going on. We don't know what's going to happen. But 2 terms, that's it. You finish as governor. There'll be a new governor. Will this be an issue in the 2017 race for governor?
Well, Pre-K Our Way's objective, and Pre-K Our Way is a group of, the leadership group contains business people, educators, advocates, and former political officials, former public officials. We have Governor Kane and Governor Florio as part of our leadership group.
So it's bipartisan?
It's definitely bipartisan, and it's nonprofit. And our objective is to make this an issue that's being discussed in New Jersey in the legislature, and hopefully in the 2017 gubernatorial election. Now, just recently there was a bill introduced in the Assembly, sponsored by Assemblywoman Jaycee and co-sponsored by Assemblywoman DeCroce.
We'll make that clear. Jaycee is a Democrat, DeCroce is a Republican.
That's correct. It's also co-sponsored by
Senator Ruiz as well.
Well, Senator Ruiz in the Senate, in the Senate bill. There's 2 bills. There's one in the Assembly and one in the Senate.
And also Senate President Steve Sweeney is involved.
Senate President Steve Sweeney, and on the Assembly bill we have the Speaker, as a co-sponsor, and also the chair of the Education Committee, Assemblyman Deignan.
So let me ask you before I let you out of here, who's against this?
Well, I really haven't met too many people that are against it. Many people think that, they say, well, yeah, we should do that, but we don't have the money. And I think the answer to that is you need to set priorities. I'm certainly not an advocate of raising taxes in New Jersey, but I think we need to set priorities. The legislature needs to set priorities, and certainly education, public education,
Sure.
is an investment. It's not an entitlement, and it should be a high priority.
Brian Maher, I promise you this, on our other program, our sister program called New Jersey Capital Report, more public policy oriented, we will continue this conversation because too many young people, children, are affected by this, and the state is affected as well. Thank you, Mr. Maher. We appreciate it.
Thank you for the time.
Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thank you very much.
Visit us online at steveautobato.org. Email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/SteveAutobato-PhD and follow us on Twitter at Steve Autobato.
We are pleased to be joined by our friend Dr. Serra, who is the chairperson of the Division of Nursing at Bloomfield College. Good to see you, Dr. Serra.
Thank you. Thank you.
Doctor, talk to us about nursing. I mean, you were saying right before we got on the air that nursing has changed a lot since the Affordable Care Act. In what ways has it changed?
Well, it has been changing dramatically, but the Affordable Care Act is giving more opportunity to advanced practice nurses to really practice at the full extent of their education.
Take a step back. You use the phrase advanced practice nurses.
Yes.
I think people watching say, well, what's the difference between an advanced practice nurse and a nurse? What's the difference?
Well, to be a nurse, you need a degree. It's either a 2-year or now, more importantly, it's a 4-year degree to become a registered nurse. Before you can sit for licensing,
Right.
you have to have that kind of education. So an advanced practice nurse is that they go beyond that, and they study at the master's level and at the doctoral level.
They can do more?
They can do more.
Does that impact the patient differently?
It impacts the patient in that a lot of research has been done as to how effective they are. And actually, because nurses are trained differently than doctors, they're not doctors, but they can practice and
Sure.
do certain kinds of care for clients. And many of them work in inner cities and in areas where it's the accessibility to MDs
Sure.
is not there. So.
And you know the other part of that that's so important, doctor, is that prevention, the prevention piece. You know, so much focus in healthcare is dealing with acute situations, but more and more the role of nursing, the role of nurses, focuses on prevention. So give us a concrete example. We were talking about asthma right before we got on the air. So how would a nurse or those in the nursing profession deal with someone with asthma from a prevention point of view versus, all right, we'll wait until it's an acute situation? What's the difference?
Asthma is a chronic condition. You're not going to be cured of asthma. Okay, so you have to learn, there is no cure at this point. So you have to learn how to live with it and how to manage it effectively so that you don't end up using emergency care, which is very, very expensive. So nurses...
Which is part of the problem.
Right. Nurses in general, their focus has always been on educating families, educating patients on what they can do to try to prevent these conditions from exacerbating.
Let's talk about asthma a little bit. What people watching right now, they either are dealing with asthma, they know someone dealing with asthma, family member, whatever. Educate them right now. What could they do?
Okay. They can, first of all, they have to make sure that they're using their, if they have peak flow meters or whatever it is to detect if they're going into an exacerbation of their asthma, okay? So they can learn things to do, like, for example, in the home, how to try to keep it, you can't keep a totally dust-free environment, but how to manage the home so that you minimize the amount of dust and pollens that are there.
How about smoking?
Smoking is another big one.
Off limits.
It should be off limits to everybody, and there's a lot of legislation now that has come into effect about no smoking in certain areas, so that also has helped But patients that have asthma, like I said, have to learn how to live with it and manage it effectively so that they don't end up, I mean, literally, people can die of asthma.
But what's the role of nursing in all that, though?
Nursing is education and management. That's the main role of nursing, teaching families what to do, teaching families how to take care of the family member or themselves if they have asthma, how to avoid things that they know may trigger an attack, how to, if, for example, if you're an athlete, let's say, in school, and you know that exercise, excessive exercise, will trigger an asthmatic attack, we'll teach them what to do before. Maybe they need to take the inhaler before they go into exercises.
But here's what's so interesting about it. I keep thinking, doctor, that actually the education of nurses today, the training of nurses today, sounds like it has to be somewhat different because of the role of nurses.
It is different because there is so much more nurses have to learn and do as opposed to when I first became a nurse. It's very different. People live longer. Diseases are not more prevalent, but they tend to show up sooner, and many people don't know how to deal with their conditions or try to avoid. Just because you have a predisposition to a disease doesn't mean that you're going to get it. So if you know that you're predisposed because of family history or whatever, so you have to learn how to try to avoid getting it, especially early, and how to effectively deal with it once you do have that condition.
You've been in this industry, this profession, for a few years.
Yes.
How would you describe this as a time to go into nursing? Good time?
I think it's a wonderful time to go into nursing. Make the case for nursing.
Yeah.
Because, again, our population is aging. And as we all know, more and more acute care hospitals can't manage to have patients there for days and days and days. So people have to learn how to take care of family members when they go home. So this is where community nursing is really out there. Nurses teaching families how to take care of someone who has. When my mother was
a few seconds you're going to tell me off the air, but they're more important than ever before.
More important.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by Investors Bank, New Jersey Resources, Sovereign Health System, Oscar Health Insurance, NJM, ADP, and by the Fidelco Group. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.
Hi, I'm Eric. You might see me as an ordinary person, but I've been living with a brain injury for nearly 2 years. One of my struggles is short-term memory loss. At Opportunity Project, I'm given hope and support, and I've gained my confidence back through the job placement program. Despite my challenges, I have a reason to keep improving. Today, even though life has changed me, I believe that anything is possible.
If you have a brain injury, you don't have to face your road to recovery alone.